All right. Hell in a Cell is in the books. Juneteenth is in the books. You know what? We've survived Black History Month, Juneteenth. We still have a black women's champion. And we had one all throughout the whole time. And we still have a black WWE champion. What's going on here?
Woo! Baby steps. You got to take what you can get.
Baby steps. Make sure y'all check out the Black Excellence Show after y'all finish this one.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yes! What you gonna do? 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 What you gonna do?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of the Wrestling Realm Now podcast. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters, and I'm joined by the Real Dwayne Allen. And if you're not down with that, we've got two words. You know, we ain't gonna do that.
Well,
yeah, we do. We got two words for you. Subscribe.
I was about to say the same. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. If they go back and watch the promo, they would understand why that's funny.
Exactly. So if y'all just getting on, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn the bell notifications on. You know what? You messed up, bro.
What did I do?
You gave me the theme music. I got an announcement coming later, right before the break.
Boy.
Right before the break, I got an announcement. But you gave me the theme music. So I've been in here jamming.
Well, but as soon as we came back from the break, I'm still boogieing.
Yeah. How's your week been?
Busy. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm ripping and running. It really feels like 2011 again. But when I say I'm ripping and running, and I'm doing it in silence, that's the crazy part. You know me. I don't make all it. I could be doing 1,000 things and it looks like nothing, and I'm good at it. So trust me.
Man, you talk about 2011, 2012, because 2012 wasn't a slouch year either. You know, when you really think about it, and you go back and you look at the YouTube and archive, go to season 1, season 2 playlist. Mm-hmm. Woo, that was a lot of content. Edited on Movie Maker. Now,
same to say it, but
I knew what you was about to say too. But the funniest thing about that whole situation is, like, the shows we was turning them around faster now. Yeah, we would sit there in between work. We would be at work. We can say this now. We'd be at work writing show rundowns and ideas. We're supposed to be selling TVs. You know, we was like, you know what? Forget that protection plan. You don't need it anyway. It sucks. You know, forget that calibration. You know, when after I had to cut that promo on them. But
man, sign up, cash up. So my sheet looked like I sold some TVs today. I don't care about none of that stuff.
Yep. But man, oh man, Hell in a Cell tonight. What an ending. Bobby Lashley. I like to start from the top and go to the back, but in this case, I'll mix it around.
Sure,
but Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, winner. If Bobby Lashley was this, that means is Drew McIntyre cannot challenge for the WWE Championship. Wow, Lashley is champion, and somebody was running around saying, "Oh, thank heavens!" Now I'm on Black Wrestling Twitter, and I saw a whole bunch of woo emojis.
All the relief on the timeline.
All the relief. What that tells me, how good is Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre telling this story? You know, this is what we like to do here. You know, you sit back and you see this whole time. No matter which way you look at it, right? When you watch a WWE champion, right? We know when Roman goes in a match, we know he's going to win. Now, credit to him and Jey Uso, and at the Night of Champions of Hell in a Cell, they told such a good story that made you think, well, what if Jay slightly gets this one right. Same with Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar. When they were in the ring together, AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar, they told stories where it made you think like, but you know, for the most part, most of the time when you had these championship runs, you know, okay, this guy's going to hold the title for a while.
Right. Yeah.
With Lashley and McIntyre, every time he defended the title against him, you thought Lashley could lose this. And whether you want to say because we know the history of the way pro wrestling has been to black people, or we feel that maybe Drew McIntyre is being anointed as the next golden one, regardless of which way you look at it, you still thought maybe, just maybe, he might lose. But tonight he went out there, did his thing. And it was brutal, even to a point MVP gets involved. He gets into the cage or the cell, and you know, then after that, he had to get in the cell because the referee was knocked out and they opened the door, which allowed him to get in. And then when he tried to get out, the other referee came and locked the door. So now MVP, but that led to him allowing, that led to him interfering in the match when McIntyre was about to put Lashley away. MVP gets involved. Lashley schools the schoolboy. People didn't like it. They hated the schoolboy pin. I, for one, it's a wrestling match. It's a story. Everything don't have to be boom, 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 finisher, boom, game over. You know, now granted, both men took a beating. I mean, you even see like, you know how with black people when we scab,
you know,
certain areas. well, I'm just saying because like Drew had turned blue, right, and you know he had like welts and stuff, but like Bobby had that. We see you play basketball outside. That significant scab that leaves that pink with the redness, and he had like and I'm like, oh, he gonna feel it.
Right. The first stuff getting into it.
I was thinking, I was like, Bob. I think I used to it. Bobby's gonna burn, and he's definitely gonna burn. He's probably burning right now, and I'm talking about the scab, folks. But overall, man, what you think about this? What you think about this whole story, man, going into this?
I think when you look at Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, it's an old school matchup, you know, between two bigger guys, two muscle heads. And a lot of times in those type of matchups, I think we take for granted bigger muscular guys that can still work and tell a legitimate story. You don't have to be the greatest in-ring worker because there's different styles of professional wrestling. There is no one style that makes it right. You know what I mean? Wrestling fans and sometimes even wrestling companies, we have these biases where we place wrestlers in situations and scenarios. So if you're the workers and you get a smaller guy, you're the technician, you're the mid-card guy, like, you know, and you're not a top guy. But then on a reverse end nowadays in this version of professional wrestling, if you can't work a certain type of way, technical and stuff like that, you know, you're not really a fan favorite. Like a lot of those stereotypes have been kind of overthrown and shifting, you know, over the years where we've shattered a lot of these stereotypes and bigger guy, top guy, but he can't work, you know, or he can't tell a story. And we see a lot of bigger guys nowadays, and even in other wrestling promotions around the world, where some bigger guys can only do they're very limited in what they can do. Even if you don't have the most versatile in-ring skill set, you know what I mean? There's still ways you can perform and you can be the best version of yourself to tell the story that you need to tell based off the situation that you're in. So with that, all that being said, I think Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre have done a really good job of that because they're bigger guys, but like I said, they're an interesting matchup. You know what I mean? This is a matchup we've seen before previously in TNA, but it was very on the surface, and WWE has taken their time and tried to tell this story not so abrupt, like match, rematch, and then it's done. You know what I mean? They've especially during this time, we're kind of at the back end of what we consider the COVID era of professional wrestling, and Bobby Lashley being the top guy. He's a guy that we can tell they're trying to put in this main event space, and he needs meaningful feuds and meaningful matchups. And I think this is one of those things that has been drawn out to feel that way. And it was everything you could expect from two alpha dogs getting in the ring, you know, especially in Hell in a Cell. It was brutal. It was intense. The story they told, it made sense. The finish, that's always a fan could not like the finish, right? But what I saw was it was a respectable finish where you beat a top guy because it was out of desperation. You know what I mean? It was like, man, just because a guy wins and loses in a match doesn't mean one guy's necessarily better than the other. In some matches, it's meant to look that way. That's why we have squash matches. This is what we're doing around. So everybody break it down. There's levels to professional wrestling matches. Not every wrestling match has the same objective, and not every wrestling match has the same goal in regards to the performers that are in the ring, right? And I started with squash matches. Our squash matches to make one performer look extremely strong versus another performer. That's why you have a Braun Strowman versus an Ellsworth. You know, that's what that point was. But then you have these matchups where it's like these guys are almost equals, and it's going to take something drastic for one to beat the other. You know what I mean? And you say, okay, well, the whole point is to make Bobby Lashley look strong. Yeah, maybe it is. It's not. Bobby Lashley's not a guy with his size and his skill and his ability to. No one needs to make him look strong. He already looks strong. That's not the objective. The objective for a guy like Bobby Lashley in these type of situations is for him to have meaningful wins. So to face a guy like Drew McIntyre that pretty much carried the company during the most difficult time of professional wrestling history, it's a meaningful win, you know. And then with the stipulation attached to it, it was one of those things where he gave it all that he had, but at the same time, Drew McIntyre was no slouch. He was a formidable opponent, and a roll-up, whether you like it or not, it shows that I had to catch him while I could. It wasn't about me dominating him, because that's not what the whole point is, because you still need Drew McIntyre to look strong, even in the loss. We talked about it previously in a soon-to-come flagship Wrestling Realm show with Bret Hart and the British Bulldog. Bret Hart looked better, or he got over in a match by losing more than it affected his career, even if he won the match. Although Davey Boy Smith won the match, you saw, you know, Bret Hart's stock rise. And this is one of those situations where this is how the matchmakers put these things together. Now, as fans, you just watch what's in front of you. But if you look a little deeper and you watch this stuff for a long time, you can see these patterns. And this is one of those things that you notice with Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. He needed this feud. It was like, okay, you don't want to rush, because if you rush it, like I said, if you look at WrestleMania to now, if you rush this feud, where do you go? The best part about what I'm seeing the most with guys like Bobby Lashley, really majority of the world champions, is they're not putting the focus so much on the title. They're putting more focus on the individual who carries the title. You know what I mean? So it's not like, okay, I'm the world champion, so I need to defend it because I'm a defending champion. That's not everybody's character in WWE. We only got in that mindset because of Bret the Hitman Hart, ironically, because we have a flagship show coming up talking about Bret the Hitman Hart. He was known as the wrestler. He was the first wrestler in a long time that wasn't, his gimmick wasn't based off something else. He literally was, as Vince said, he was almost the most legit WWE champion we had, because he was a proud wrestler, and that's why he was the champion, not because he was larger than life, not because he was a comic book superhero, not because he was the, you know what I mean? It was one of those things that programming was left with us, so we assumed that everyone that we see in that situation, they're supposed to be that way.
I want to jump in real quick, right there. I got into on Twitter. Shout out to Davis, aka Drip, Stack Guy Drip. Me and him always go back and forth with the Bret Hart stuff, right? And then it's funny because then Stack Guy Greg from Cheap Heat Podcast will jump in. He's a big Bret Hart fan like us, and he was saying like he felt Bret Hart was boring. Now, fair point. Born in the 90s. I've noticed this. I want to know, have you seen the same pattern? Was Bret Hart one of those people you had to be there to really appreciate? Like, you know how like you can go back now and watch Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior and be like, just see like highlights and see how like they really affected the crowd just on these promo packages, right? And then you see a guy like Shawn Michaels with his promo packages, you can see, I see ladies really loved him. I see he was most flamboyant, most athletic, XYZ, right? Was Bret Hart really somebody? Because I can't take myself out of 90s Brian who really enjoyed Bret Hart, because I stayed there and then everything Bret Hart gave me afterwards I was attached to. So was he somebody that you would say that you had to be there?
No, I think it goes down to what you like as a wrestling fan. You know, everybody likes what they like.
Right. And that's the fun part of wrestling Twitter, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, some people prefer things over other, you know, it's also a generational thing. You know, there was a time where some guys like, well, I prefer Shawn Michaels over Bret Hart because he's more exciting. He was flashy. He was a high flyer. But then you say, okay, well, I like Bret Hart more than I like Shawn Michaels because he was going to beat you. He was kind of ground and pound. He was classic, but he was new school. He was eye-catching. He did a lot of things that made, you know, it really just depends on what you like, honestly. Like, I mean, wrestling fans are different. Everybody comes from different generations. Everybody comes from different things that they like. And, you know how some people only like big guys. Some guys only like short guys that can work. Some guys are like, don't care what they do in the ring. They want to see what they do before and after the match. You know, those things make a difference. And, you know, wrestling fans are, you know, very plentiful, and wrestling fans have all different types of ideas and concepts and stuff. And you know, once again, we were 90s kids. We kind of grew up into the mix. And like I said, everything that he gave us at the time, he was, you know, it got over with us. You know, and granted, it wasn't the biggest thing for them financially, but it worked for us. So
yeah.
You can see the same thing with Bobby Lashley and a Drew McIntyre. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's almost things people say. Well, like this is a feud that you don't want to keep going on and on because it's a simple story to be told. You know what I mean? And the simple way to break this story is MVP had to kind of negotiate the stipulation where guess what? If you lose, you can't challenge as long as you're champion, which makes it make sense as to why. If a fan asks, well, why isn't Drew back in the title picture? Because now you can explain it to him. Once again, it's those small details where you're making it make sense. You know, that's the one thing we always say here. Make it. You don't have to make. It's wrestling. It's not like it's you just have to make it make sense. So if Bobby Lashley decides to challenge for Humberto Carrillo, and they're like, well, that makes sense. He's a little guy. Why is he challenging? Why is it you got a guy like Drew and Ross? Well, you say, well, Drew lost in the title match. He negotiated with MVP. You know, he got caught slipping. You know what I mean? And whether you like the story to end the way that it did. It's not meant to be any more than it was, and it's to forward Bobby Lashley. Now, before we move on to the next match, let me ask you this, because this is an interesting wrinkle in this situation. And I thought about it when you talked about specifically the way MVP got involved from the negotiation, even to his part inside the match. Was Vince McMahon right in breaking up the Hurt Business? Because now you're yeah, that's right. I'm putting you on Black Twitter. Because I'm part of Black Twitter, but sometimes everything ain't always about Black when it comes to professional wrestling. He broke up the Hurt Business, and I'm saying this now because we can verify because he's still champion. He broke up the Hurt Business to put more emphasis on Bobby Lashley. They were meant to bring. It wasn't meant to make any other statements. It just worked out that way. And are there ways that they could have still done it? Sure, but Vince decided this was the way he wanted to do it, where he wanted to put the focus completely on Bobby Lashley. MVP's attention was going to go to making storylines make sense with Cedric and Shelton. You know, he wanted to say, no, I want everything MVP does to affect everything that Bobby Lashley does because it only adds to the importance of who he is. Yeah. You know, this is the type of manager that we haven't seen in a long time where he's such an important he's almost like an agent, you know what I mean? And which is so slick because it's almost an evolution of his character. Because when he came in like a big sports star. He was this Terrell Owens type, flamboyant. Also, like I remember when I was never a fan of MVP because I didn't like the gimmick, and then even his gear. He looks like a football player. Like it looked like that's how a lot of football players were training in their gear early on. You know, he was ringside. He was important. He got a championship ring when he won. You know, I didn't get it at first. I was like, oh, so he's supposed to be like this big time athlete. You know what I mean?
That's what he said the character was because he working in Florida. I heard him say this on a podcast. He would see guys come in and it would annoy him. So he was like, there we go. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, you know, even the nose guard and the gloves. And that was him. And then to see him now, like kind of taking this role as this kind of important sports agent, similar to what Paul Heyman does as an advocate. You know, it's kind of the title of manager, but it's not just okay. Well, I'm the wrestling manager. It's not just wrestling based. You know what I mean? It's like no, I'm this representative. This is a business. But that's why I asked you. Now that MVP's attention solely goes to Bobby Lashley, was Vince McMahon right? Because like I said, the attention is strictly on Bobby Lashley. It's strictly on making him an established main event player going forward. Now this is a down period, right? Yeah. But some of our greatest legends and Hall of Famers were built because they were started during down periods for them to eventually become megastars during the height of the business once again. You don't look at a stunning Steve Austin and say, oh, that guy's going to change the business. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin was cutting his teeth. He was still Stone Cold during a down period in the business. And then when he finally turned that corner and revolutionized the business, you know what I mean? The seeds were planted then. So Vince McMahon is
same with John Cena.
John Cena's the same way.
You know, he came after the Attitude Era. So
there was an era of wrestling that couldn't survive. You know what I mean? And you know, without John Cena, and there was a point where he was just another guy on the roster, or he was still the character that he is now, a version of it. But sometimes Vince is never afraid of the right. That we're the only ones that are concerned with the right now. Once again, before we move forward, I'm going back to ask you, I'm putting you on the spot. So if you want to write something down or clip something off, what's the number one? I'm just checking the thing.
1930.
Was Vince McMahon right about Bobby Lashley? About breaking up the Hurt Business?
So I'm gonna tell you why.
Yeah, if Bobby Lashley say that,
No, because I want to make sure I'm seeing this. I'm getting this out right, and I want people to understand what I'm about to say.
Because Vince is always villainized. He's vilified a lot.
As much as we hated Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Business breaking up,
sure.
If Bobby Lashley would have remained champion with the Hurt Business, it's hard for me to see those guys not getting involved at WrestleMania in some way, shape, or form. Even if they just there, now they're involved. They're a distraction, right? MVP is one distraction, but he almost looks as the way he's looking right now with the, the legit, I believe he does have some knee soreness or injury. He's not a threat to Drew McIntyre. Like, they're not on an even playing field as one guy's hurt and this guy's 100% or whatever.
Right.
So they're not looked at that. So if you can't just have a stable without somebody getting involved, right? It just doesn't work that way, especially with a heel. So in a sense, yeah, because now it makes Bobby Lashley look stronger. And like you said, there's an emphasis on him, right? Yeah. You look on Monday Night Raw, those ladies are paying Bobby Lashley attention. They're not paying Cedric and Shelton Benjamin attention. And it hurt. It's one of those things. But at the same time, would you rather have the Hurt Business and no WWE champion is Bobby Lashley? Or would you rather have Bobby Lashley as WWE champion and the Hurt Business break up?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're going to say, I'd rather have Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Business. I mean, without the Hurt Business. Now, so as much as I hate to admit it, it's one of those things. He was right. Sure, you could have looked at it, you could have booked it the other way, but we already know what the perception would have been. Oh, well, Bobby Lashley's a weak champion because he can't get nothing done by himself.
Same thing. That's the first thing. That's exactly what I was going to say. As soon as you got done, like he would be looking weak. Like, well, he could never win without the Hurt Business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I mentioned
as big as he is, why does he need their help? Yep, I was saying the same
exactly.
Thing. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, you go back and look at Triple H in 1999, right? Yeah. Now, as much as we probably didn't care for that run because it was sleazy, he needed to wiggle his way with Jim Ross, and then Shawn Michaels helped him retain against The Rock, but he was winning matches by himself, and then he called his goons back. Now, granted, they was floating around not doing anything. Would we like to see that repeat itself? Sure, same with The Rock. Now, The Rock went from one evil empire to another, with the Nation of Domination. But if The Rock goes in and he starts challenging for the WWE Championship, because even as an Intercontinental Champion, he always looked like he needed the Nation to help him. So now he goes in WWE Champion. Yeah, he's the corporate champion, but it's a whole different story. And now he's a main eventer because he's the corporation. He's with the man. He's the enemy here. So yeah, now I'm just wondering, looking forward with Lashley. Okay, like you said, he's got big wins. And you look at the timeline of the story, he beats Drew McIntyre cleanly as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Making him pass out. Then he beats McIntyre and Braun Strowman, two behemoths, and then he beats McIntyre again. So this has been a clean streak for him, and like I said, that's why I wasn't mad at the roll up. It was like, okay, so you're gonna have him put him to sleep again. Now, of course, as a fan, I'm rooting like, come on. But like I said, when it didn't happen that way, and I saw he got the win, it as a fan, it drew me in, it pulled me in. So when Bobby Lashley finally moved, I was like, whoo. Wow. Okay. Cool. He's still champion. That's the goal of wrestling, is to pull you in emotionally. Yeah.
Okay. Now I don't mind spending 20 minutes talking about the black man's match. So that's we recorded on Father's Day. We gotta celebrate. These milestones. Trust me. I'm not ashamed. Black fans, it's touch and go for us sometimes. Like, man, you never know.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, it's. We celebrate, we made it through Juneteenth, Black History Month, Women's History Month with black champions. Shout out to Sasha Banks. Shout out to Bianca Belair, who tonight was successful in a huge win over Bayley. I thought
that was a great transition, by the way.
Two ladies, well, that's what we do. Man, those two ladies. They went out there and they told a story. But the key for me wasn't just the match. We're gonna go about the body slam. I ain't gonna say X's and O's. I'm gonna say the slams and suplexes all day.
Right.
The thing about it was, one, seeing Bianca go to another level. Yeah. She showed that she could really get down and dirty. We've already seen this with Bayley, right? We saw it when she hit Becky Lynch with the chair. We saw it last year, Hell in the Cell, when she turned on Sasha, and then Hell in the Cell, she just came up short. She comes out there, she has the black gear on, and I said, that's bad luck. You lost the title in the same color, not the same gear, but all black. Yeah. And somebody tweeted the illest Rican, shout out to him, was like, well, it's because she looks good in it. I said, yeah, she's gonna look good losing, and sure enough, But you saw Bianca, the story they told. There's this thing with Bianca's hair, right? And everybody knows that's like when she gets to that point, it's a respect thing. She don't want to have to use it, but if you keep pressing her buttons, all right, now she's gonna use her ready-made weapon. And
that's such a smart side. You could tell that's like somebody backstage is pinpointing when to use that and when not to use that. The psychology behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, because we playing a video game. Shout out to us on Twitch. Make sure you follow us. We playing a video game.
Shout
we
out
use
to us
it
on Twitch. You're on fire tonight, buddy. You're on fire.
Hey man, but you constantly gonna use it, right? But like you said, it's the psychology and the story. So then you have Bayley. She's going to use it to her advantage. Time Bianca said, "Okay, cool. Let me show you how to do it right. Now I'm gonna tie myself to you and just beat you." So it's kind of like the Texas bull rope style matches, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah. And it took a KOD through the ladder, but when I tell you they went out there and it was brutal. They beat each other up to the point my wife was even like, "Whoa," But the key afterwards, when she said something along the lines, because I can't remember the exact line, but she said, pretty much, "Yeah, I got the win, but I'll never forgive her for what she did." Yeah, that made you say, when a black woman say that, you better sleep with one eye open. Yeah, whether you a man or a woman. She said, "You better sleep with one eye open," and that right there, that's storytelling, and that's the thing for Bianca Belair. Shout out to her, somebody who comes into the business. She didn't go through the indies, but so she didn't get a chance to learn the psychology on the way. She learned all this down in the performance center, and it's almost just kind of you see. As much as we love our indie wrestlers, shout out to Black Wrestlers Matter. They had their second show yesterday on Juneteenth, which we supported. The Wrestling Realm supported the stream. You as much as we love the indies, when the WWE can kind of mold their characters the way they want to, it's a healthy balance. And I think that's one of the things on the main roster we have that healthy balance of indie darlings and WWE builds creations. And it makes for great television. And like I said, Bianca, I for one wish she had matches on TV just so I could rack up wins. Shout out to Blue and Jenna in the mixed tag match show. Shout out to my bloodline partner Britt Waters. So we want more wins. But these wins on pay-per-view, she's getting these wins on pay-per-view. And the thing is, you're seeing a run with Bianca. And it was a perfect person with Bayley because Bayley had legitimate beef. Okay, I lost the title to Sasha. I couldn't get her back in a rematch. And I didn't have a match at WrestleMania. All right, I waited my turn. Now I want my title back. And then she comes up just short, controversial at the last pay-per-view, and at Backlash. And now tonight, she gave everything she had, but Bianca also showed she had to get down and dirty. And it's just going to show you these women are doing a phenomenal job, keeping up. And I don't even want to say keeping up with the men like it's not possible, but getting the space that they've been given, painting the picture. They ask for opportunities, they getting opportunities, and they living up to it.
Yeah, it's one of the key things that you mentioned was Bianca. It's been the chatter has been about Bianca's lack of television matches, and usually when you see that, you have to ask yourself, okay, so why is that? Wrestling is all about questions. You know what I mean? When something happens, the first thing we do is we ask questions. You know what I mean? Probably most often after voicing our displeasure about something. But one thing I've noticed that she deserves a new moniker or a new nickname, and I'm saying it here first. I don't know if anybody else said it, but I'm going to claim to have said it first. Her name needs to be Big Match Bianca. Ooh. Because she has delivered in every major match, to date in regards to her main roster debut. All her matches have meant something but they were, to me, they were like well worth the wait. And she is performing well, and you can see her maturation from her NXT days to now, and that's a major improvement, and that says a lot. That says that she's developing. Some people, you have to hide them. Some people are only as good as they're going to get, and you have to do things to kind of, it doesn't derail their push necessarily, but you have to kind of help them and hide things and mask certain areas. But it's like, I have not gotten that from Bianca Belair. She has performed well in every situation, and she's in the ring with the big dogs. She's in the ring with Sasha Banks. She's in the ring with Bayley. You know what I mean? You know, the four horsewomen. You still have Charlotte Flair. You know, you still have Becky Lynch. Like, as they're building these new stuff, I'm loving the fact that they're taking the best of these upcoming ladies, and they're putting them with these established girls that, one, I'm sure they're happy that they have fresh matchups, because everybody was starting to feel like it was getting stale with the women's matchups, because the best wrestlers are they're five go-to that you're going to go to. There's 6 that you're going to use, and 5 you're going to go to. You know, as of maybe 7. You know what I mean? Like for big matches, you're going to go to 4 women. You're going to go Bayley. You're going to go Sasha. You're going to go Charlotte. You're going to go Becky. You know what I mean? But then you also have like you have Alexa Bliss. You have Nia Jax. You know what I mean? And then you have girls like Shayna Baszler that are in the mix. And of course, Natalya, you know, whether she's involved in bigger matches or not, you know what I mean? But those are your big money names, those 5 to 7 girls that you're going to see if you want anything meaningful to happen. And so far, I'm sure they're relieved, because, like I said, they get fresh women they can actually get in the ring with, and it doesn't look like she doesn't belong there. So, I mean, I can't, like, you said quite a bit, and everything you said was absolutely on point. So watching what she's able to do in the ring, it's like, you know what, that was well worth the wait. I can see why they purposely hold off, and then whatever complaint that I might have when I don't see her, it's well worth the wait when I see it, you know, on pay-per-views with big matches. So
yeah, and I also think, you know, I was sitting back thinking about it, and I was like, as much as I think that's a thing too, there's not paying fans. So if there's paying fans, you would probably see her in more matches, be it tag team or singles matches or squash matches. But because it's not paying fans, you know, it's no really need to throw her.
And also, there's no house shows. You know, you'll probably see her working on the road more often, you know, with the live shows, live events. So
I would like to know, and if I was a real science writer, I would do a study to see how the pandemic has preserved wrestlers' bodies. That's
an interesting conversation that I don't think I've really heard, to be honest with you. I could be wrong, but
I haven't either, you know, and if you use that idea, you got it from the Wrestle Realm Now podcast. But I would really like to. Okay.
During his I don't know if he had a 24 or an Untold or whatever the case may be, but it was during the pandemic. He was just talking about it. Look, I live here in Florida, so it's been easy for me to go to work and go home. Like, this is the most I've been home in a long time. He didn't necessarily talk about his body, but he kind of talked about what you're alluding to. You know, like, hey, like, it was like, yeah, there's a lot of negatives, but, you know, I'm one of the few ones that said I can say that some positive came out of it, because I can go to work and go home for the first time probably ever, he said. So that's actually an interesting conversation. I would like to hear if anybody had any
you know,
information on it.
I would do research, you know, hit up a few doctors, and you know, I'm giving somebody the blueprint how to write the story, because I'm pretty sure I couldn't do it. You know, but it would be, you know, just to see how like I said, the pandemic has impacted. Like, they always equivocated to a car crash. So if there's, you know, how many more bumps are they getting? I mean, how long is the bump card? You know what I mean? If it was 10 years, is it going to increase to 12 years because of this pandemic? So that's one of the things, you know, I'm interested in. But, you know, I mentioned a special announcement, and you've alluded to one of our flagship shows. No, it won't be the Bret Hart show. But before we go to break, folks, we have a new show coming up. So last week around this time, we was wrapping up time in the studio. And boy, was that a long day, but well worth it. We got some shows done. So y'all know they had documentaries, and I'm going to touch on one when we come after break that just aired, that won't be in this show because it literally just aired this Thursday. You should already know what I'm talking about, but I got to get the Real Dwayne Allen thoughts because we haven't talked about this. So we're going to do it on the show. But yeah, like I said, we got some documentary. We got a show that we discussed the A&E series documentaries, and we discuss the Dark Side of the Rings. So I think you will enjoy it. I know you will. Here's a clip of it.
The biggest takeaway is that as a wrestling fan, a lot of these stories are being told with more depth and more range than what was probably given to them. A little bit more rope in regards to the information they can kind of dive into versus what they could or couldn't say before. As it's always fun to revisit a lot of these moments and to kind of get kind of firsthand responses and answers to a lot of the questions that we probably had growing up. It's nothing like a really bad cliffhanger where you're stuck asking questions that you really don't have the answers to. Right. So the best part about these documentaries is that they give us a lot of insight about what was going on at the time, and sometimes the superstars themselves can give us their mindset about why things happened the way they did, their careers, where they've come from. The WWE Network has always done a great job with a lot of different shorts and docu.
All right, we're back. Yeah, I definitely miss WWE Network.
I'm see, there you go.
I will say this.
Yeah.
Big improvement on Peacock tonight. You can now rewind during live shows. I'm gonna take these improvements where I can get them. I was ready
to say something. I'm like, nope, I'm leaving it alone. We got stuff to talk about.
We got stuff to talk about, but let's do this. Run with the toys. What did I watch this week? This past week, Vice did an incredible, heavy documentary on the ninth wonder of the world, the late great China Joni. I think it's Laura, Lauer,
Lauer, L-A-U-E-R.
Joni Lauer. Yes. Wow. They was already working on a documentary of her life, and so they had, we know how that is working on a documentary. So they had all this footage from her in Japan and all throughout, back and forth in her journey, and unfortunately, her unexpected passing. We saw, they was able to acquire the footage. One of the things that I realized watching this, man. And I tweeted this, that everybody failed her, and I know that can sometimes not be a right thing to say, because I get when you're dealing with somebody who's struggling with addiction, sometimes you could do all you could do to help, right, and it just doesn't work. But you could see in this documentary, she had some enablers, and she had to the point. The guy who was helping film it, when they walked, they had the cameras rolling when they found her dead. And the guy was talking about, I'm not even going to mention his name, but he was talking about to the other guys like, yeah, man, we got that footage. And he said, while he's telling the story, he's like, dude, why would you even brag about that? That footage should have been destroyed, thrown away, But just the saddest thing, Vince Russo said this, that he don't think she realized her impact that she had on the world. And one of the things they also mentioned, and like we kind of said on the upcoming show that we were dropping this Thursday, shout out to those wrestling girls, because they did do an episode on this. I was working, so I didn't get a chance to finish it. But in between, during the break, I saw part of it. But, one of the things that was known that she wanted to wrestle the women. I mean, she didn't want to wrestle women. She wanted to stay, wrestling the men. And I was just thinking, man, if women's wrestler could have been taken more seriously and maybe preserved, I get why she felt like her character was going backwards. It's not for me to say how somebody should feel, right? That's one thing that I'm big on. I can't tell you how to feel, but you think man, if they could have came up with some sort of compromise, because we was just 2 years before, 2 years later after China, here comes Jazz, and then down the line, here comes Beth Phoenix. Now, granted, women's wrestling wasn't. Gail Kim's another one. A lot of times often slept on, especially her back and forth with the WWE. But it just makes you think man, what could have been, So it's one of those things. I will say, watch with your own discretion. I'm not even saying, oh man, you need to go check it out because it was, dude. This is how heavy it was. I legitimately woke up. I was sad the rest of the night, and I've seen enough of these wrestler documentaries, and we've been watching wrestling long enough. I mean, you know, we had just met around the time we lost Macho Man. I still remember, shout out to our boy CJ Butter texting me the news. You know, so it's like we've seen a lot of stories and we heard a lot of these, but it was just something about this one. I think because you had the people who was involved. You had one of the guys who said like he was her soulmate and they clashed and whatnot. And then seeing her mother in there, her mother and her hadn't even seen each other. The last time her mother saw her was when she was 16 to go live with her dad. And they were supposed to have this big reunion. And then, you know, China had a breakdown and didn't. She wrote her mother's email. Her mother's like, oh, I'm not coming. You know, so it was like all this stuff that was going on with her. So I was like, I wouldn't even tell people, oh, yeah, you got to go watch that because it's heavy. Thanks for letting me have that space.
No, look, trust me. I think it's always the ones where you feel like it didn't have to be that way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That is like, oh man, if you usually when people pass away abruptly, mentally you always go into the space of, well, maybe if we just did this differently, maybe if this was different, maybe if this didn't happen, and no, you know, you begin to play that in your mind. I think she was one of the ones that, you know, a lot of people felt like, man, it's not like it wasn't something that couldn't have been helped. You know what I mean? You know, it's always different with the individual, of course. You know, you can't make anybody get better, but it's just like, man, we have choices in life, and we have paths that we can go down, and a lot of times we have options, and a lot of times we don't always, you know, take the best option. But one, as adults, and you know, for those who live freely in America, somewhat, you know, you have the freedom to do, you know, a lot of things, or have access to do things that might not be what's best for you. And at times that can often be your downfall. You know what I mean? And, you know, it's just situations like that, stories that are always sad, especially one, it hits you in two ways. One, it's like, oh, it's one of your favorites, especially if it's something that was a part of your childhood. It's a part of all of our childhoods.
Absolutely.
Especially as wrestling fans. But then it's just like, man, as a human being, you're like, man, I feel sorry for her relatives or her loved ones or those that were attached to her in any way, shape, or form outside of what she gave us as fans. It's like, man, you know, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. So it's tough.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough one, man. You know, let's jump back into the pay-per-view. One of the stories that a lot of people may not have been as fond of that I really am, Alexa Bliss and Shayna Baszler. Okay. I can appreciate, especially during our last show, you had mentioned we talked about, had a good discussion on mental health and pro wrestling, and during the time we discussed Bray Wyatt and him taking that time off, right? Well, I credit Alexa Bliss for kind of filling that void,
picking up the ball.
Yeah, that's the word, picking up the ball. You know, because she could have said, "No, I'm not going to do that," and we wouldn't have had nothing or even resemble like the Fiend. And you know, but while people were like, "Oh, this is crazy, this is stupid," this is like one of those things. Like this kind of works for her.
Yeah.
And it's something different, you know, because she was one of those people. She was getting John Cena-ish. You know, it's like every time you turn around, she's in the title picture. Why is Alexa Bliss facing, you know? But now you take her and you're like, you know what? This is kind of cool. This works for her. And so, you know, her and Shayna Baszler, you knew, because she's undefeated in this role. But you looked at it, you got Shayna Baszler, who's like the most legitimate woman on the roster.
Okay.
You know, at least, you know, from an MMA standpoint.
Is she tougher than Asuka?
See, that's a whole different ballgame, you know.
And Asuka is one person I forgot to mention. I meant to say her name.
I figured
and that 5 to 7. I meant to say Asuka because it's always the four horsewomen and then Asuka that you always go to. You go to. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so I was thinking, I was like, you know, Shayna's like legit.
Yeah.
And you put her in this match, and I think people, you know, they want to see more. And I get it, especially if you're a Shayna fan, but
they want to see a more serious version of, you know, butt kicking Shayna.
Right. But it's almost like to me, these comedy acts like this, I'm not impressed by your like kind of like Randy Orton's doing with Matt Riddle. Like Shayna does that, especially like with Reginald and everything. And it makes sense. Like she goes, a couple weeks ago on Raw, I'm not scared of this little doll or whatever. I'm gonna go right there and I'm gonna go right to her and I'm gonna punch her in the face and she ain't gonna know what she got herself into, only to get around her and see that she gets back and sees like the doll in the corner. It's like, okay, wait a minute. It's kind of Undertaker-ish when people try to play mind games with him. And then here comes Mick Foley, the one person who plays mind games, and he can keep up with the Undertaker.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's what I see with this whole story. So when Alexa Bliss got into Shayna's head so much, and then she went out there, and caused a lot of distractions. And, she was doing like punches to the throat and stuff. Boom, hits her with, whatever her DDT is called, and gets the win. Right. Twitter explodes. But I'm like, this kind of makes sense. This is actually a cool story. And I think a lot of people was mad that it closed Raw the other night. Yeah. But I don't know. Have you got a chance to take a look at this story a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you need versatility when it comes to characters, because in the seasons of pro wrestling, you never know where you're going to find yourself. And if you put yourself in one category, you limit the possibilities of how you can be used, right? Look at, and let's look at some greats. I'm not necessarily comparing Shayna Baszler to the greats, but this is not a new concept that fans got to get over, because it's like, my thing is, we've seen this before. Why are you so shocked and mad when you see the same thing over and over again? Vince McMahon is not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's just trying to reinvent new ways to keep that money coming in, that where it came from the original wheel in the first place. Kurt Angle was this extreme Olympic top wrestling guy, legit. He comes into and he wanted to be the superhero that never lost. Immediately, Vince McMahon made him into this character that was kind of arrogant, this crazy ego. It was kind of delusional. You know what I mean? But because they didn't put him in such a serious mode, it gave him versatility. You know what I mean? He eventually morphed into different versions of himself. He went to, okay, look, I'm a legit gold medalist, and that was his thing. And then you had like the Extreme Wrestling Machine, where it was less gimmick and more intensity, which was another version of himself. But then you have the competitive Kurt, was like he played both sides, where he's beef with Shawn Michaels. He's like, everything Shawn Michaels can do, I can do better, to the point where he mocks his theme music. You look at Mick Foley. Mick Foley came in as one type of character and evolved over the years. Like, we wouldn't have had Commissioner Foley. We wouldn't have had all the ravioli commercials. We wouldn't have had Mr. Sacco. Mick Foley often talks about, like, look, after a while I realized, I can't be the crazy guy anymore, because you can only put yourself in these type of matches. You can't be Cactus Jack all the time, because if you're not in a death match, you can't be used. One of the reasons I've never been a Dean Ambrose, John Moxley fan, and I'm gonna get to that, in a minute, because to me it's so one dimensional. I don't like professional wrestlers that are not afraid to dip into the entertainment side of everything. Booker T didn't have the personality he had in WCW that he got in WWE. He comes in, and what is one of the biggest things he's known for? His King Booker character. Even before that, his supermarket fight with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin came in as this intense SOB, and then after a while, he was still himself, but it evolved. He was in skits with Kurt Angle.
What?
You know what I mean? It's same thing with Edge, Christian. The list goes on and on, right? I don't mind funny. Everybody can't be a serious butt kicker all the time. It's not always a thing. And I know that's who she is. She's tough, but if you book her that way, then you got to put the title on her, because you're like, well, you got to put her in something serious, because now you can't do anything with her but beat everybody. Give me the belt. Now beat everybody.
That's what they did with Ronda Rousey, and look what happened.
That's how it is. So you have to be able to allow these characters to be as versatile as possible.
Beat everybody.
Give me the belt. Now beat everybody. And so when you have feuds like this story, like I have no problem. I mean, it's, once again, if you start getting that serious, you got to remember, you may be out of the demographic. Wrestling is for children. You watch it because you still enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, for you to watch it and criticize, like, yo, this ain't the wrestling boom. You know what I mean? This is a character that they're developing, and a lot of times we are so impatient with the development of characters and stories. We want it to be this storyline leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, because it's such that it's the way we've known. But then the minute they do something different, we had a problem with it. Like, wait a minute, so what do you want the same thing or do you want something different? And I think it's the best thing for Shayna Baszler because, like I say, the more versatile it shows her to be, the more you can use her. Like even when she does the TikTok videos with Nia Jax and Reginald, it's such an odd couple pairing, but it works. And I'm like, but then guess what? She's on TV every week because if you didn't see a wrestling butt kicker, she's gonna be on main event every week wrestling, and that's it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I was okay with it.
Yeah, me too. Just to kind of go over briefly the rest of the show because I know that's a couple of things we're gonna hit on. Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, the story continues. That's another one people are kind of with. I look at it like this. I wouldn't have minded if Charlotte win tonight. I don't see Rhea and Bianca as both getting runs, right? And the reason why I say that,
you don't think they're getting runs?
What I mean is not the same type of runs.
Okay.
I see Rhea, who's just somebody who just showed up. Okay, let's try this and let's see where it goes. Where I feel like Bianca was like, okay, we got here and we're going here, and we're gonna come back here. Like I felt like Bianca's run was already penciled in, and I feel like Rhea's is like, okay, let's just see how this goes, right?
Yeah.
Hence, that's what I mean. But Charlotte, it came to disqualification where because it was the table spot. You know how like they take off the top of the table, right. And what it was, Rhea was just so desperate that she had to hit Charlotte because her leg was hurting. And Charlotte was gonna work that figure 4 and figure 8, and I'm waiting for it, right? And I'm like, she about to get her. Oh, here it comes. She got her, but they near the ropes. I'm like, all right. So then Rhea gets out of the ring, and then when she finally gets the chance, she gets herself disqualified. So it lets you know at any given time, like this could go another way. Now, granted, we got Money in the Bank coming, So I'm interested to see that. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, those two, they can't have a bad match. Same with Rollins and Cesaro. Those two can't have a bad match either. So, what's your thoughts?
No, I mean, it's first of all, they were 3 easy stories to tell. You know what I mean? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I think they just like, oh, we got to do right. Okay, yeah, cool. All right, let's do it. And it's so simple. You know what I mean? It makes so much sense. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair, you got to be patient with this. This is going to be a long-term feud. This is one of those things that's probably going to go the distance because of the history with their potential, where they started, the comparisons here and there, and then now they're almost total opposites. So this is one of those situations where you see, the veteran kind of building, and like I said, she's got a fresh opponent, she's got a fresh beef, she's got a fresh story to tell. Cesaro and Seth Rollins can do nothing wrong in anything that they do, and especially working together. Seth Rollins hasn't had a legitimate dance partner, in my opinion, and probably since Rey Mysterio, of course, and stuff like that. But it's just like trying to find his way into the mix. That was one of the things that it's difficult to have a top guy like Seth Rollins still be in top guy situations when you don't have dance partners. But for Cesaro is just stepping into the role, and I feel like the more he works with Seth Rollins on that level, the more opportunities that's going to kind of fall his way. And it's something I don't want to. These are 3 feuds that I'm like, okay, cool. I can get more of this. These are stories you can still tell. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, man. It's almost like a wrinkle in this bigger cloth that is the Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens story. And that's one of the beauties of it. They're 3 safe matches, but I mean, if as a wrestling fan, you kind of see, okay, one match you see somebody you really saw 2 matches where they're trying to establish new stars. That takes time. That's a process. Doesn't always look good, doesn't always make sense, or doesn't always come across as a big deal. But guess what? We're going to go back and appreciate those matches afterwards when you see Cesaro in that top spot, when you see him finally ready to say the show. And first of all, it's the opportunity to show Vince he can hang with those guys because he came up with those dudes. And you see his personality, you see him developing. And guess what? It took that long for him to really, he's always been a great wrestler, but for him to kind of develop into who Cesaro is after gimmick after gimmick, but it just kind of morphs into its own thing, like Steve Austin. Steve Austin came in trying to do one thing on purpose, and then it just became who he was. Yeah. So, I mean, I got a problem with it. Like I said, stuff can always be better, of course, but it was a fun pay-per-view. It did what it was supposed to do. It gave us what we were looking for as far as like I said, whether you like it or didn't like it, it's not like it didn't deliver. You know what I mean? So I enjoy it. I mean, like I said, what more can you say? It's not meant to be more than what it was, and it is what it is. And I'm looking forward to where each story develops going forward.
Now, I will say this: these past, so we've been getting wrestling once a month on Sundays with pay-per-views. You know, they've been delivering. Yeah. You may not like Monday Night Raw. You may not like the matches, even though I've been entertained with this whole Jeff Hardy and Cedric Alexander. I would like to see Cedric get a win over Jeff Hardy, but
get a vet working with a young guy.
Exactly. But these things have been entertaining. And shout out to Roman. I think Roman pulled the ultimate head of the table move. Said, I ain't working on Father's Day. I'm going to spend time with my kids.
That's genius.
Like when they made the matchup on SmackDown, I remember.
Make it make sense, right?
Yeah. And I was like, you know, of course, Ray's like, no, I can't take this. I want to see you Friday night. Okay. Good idea. Boost the ratings. But also, you know, he don't have to work on Father's Day. Ain't like fans in the crowd. And we got a solid classic 3-hour pay-per-view. I thought the show started at 7, actually started at 8. It was over by 11. I said, okay, we going back to this. I can run with this. You know, one of the things we haven't talked about on Wrestling Realm now, and I realized this after every episode. Have you got a chance to check out Hit Row?
No, not yet.
Oh man.
I keep forgetting. Like you give me a list of everything I need to catch up on, and then as soon as we're done, I'm like,
I feel you. Shout out to Uncle Raj. You know he don't like nothing, but
he
don't
like anything.
Exactly. He don't like nothing at all. But
that's why he couldn't come on the show tonight. He's like, yeah, I don't want to watch it. I don't care about it. I'm like, okay.
No, he's probably watching it.
You know he watched it.
Exactly. But Hit Row, man. You know. They've been doing their thing on NXT. You know, it's a black stable. Shout out to Swerve. I'm still a lot of times I could be ready to say Shane Strickland, but you know, Isaiah Swerve Scott. You know, him and his crew. They going down there. They doing their thing. They are must see TV. AJ Francis gets on social media, starts rapping. You know, we see him, and it's real cool how they did this. Right? Yeah. He's the guy in all the treasure videos. He's out with talent, trying to find all this treasure stuff. And then all of a sudden he shows up on NXT with a whole different type of attitude, a bad guy. And, you know, shout out to him being a Marylander. You know, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, this is what we do here. You know, he shows up as, you know, essentially a badass. You know, you got Ashante the Adonis, and then you got Brianna Brandy, and also known as B-Fab. Now, there's always this thing. WWE do these stereotypes, this, that, and the other. And I'm going to tell you why I stopped saying that. I read JTG's book.
Okay.
And he was talking about that. And I think Shad Gaspard, may he rest in peace, said on something else. They pitched the gimmicks of Crime Time. Yeah, right. It was their idea. So that's when, you know, when people go into the whole stereotype thing, I get it. I understand it. I ain't stupid. Some stuff is. But I realized, like, okay, but some people who also pitching their gimmicks, like, I feel like the Street Profits, you know, I feel like that's something they pitch. Shout out, because I look at Angelo Dawkins. I'm like, wasn't he down in NXT forever? Was he at the last FCW crew?
Honestly, I don't know, but he was there for a minute. I really thought he was going to get cut. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah,
he was a guy that I was like, he's not. I didn't like his look. I didn't like. He used to wear like 2 headbands on his head. He dressed similar to how he looked now. You know what I mean? But I was just like, man, he's not gonna make it. Like,
I feel like he talked to Sasha Banks. I feel like she talked about that on the New Day pod, or maybe she was talking about she was thinking she was gonna get cut. But I feel like they kind of had their war stories together.
Yeah, he always had a big personality. You can tell he was always like, you know, but it was just like, what is this guy doing? You know, because I'm always going to judge black wrestlers way more difficult than, you know, any other wrestler. But I was just like, so when he kind of him and Montez Ford kind of got together, as crazy as it sounds, it just made sense.
Yeah,
I'm not a big Street Profits fan, but I think both of those guys, they do a really good job of being themselves without being a stereotype. The problem is us as African Americans. Our culture has been, it's been portrayed in such a stereotypical light that when you are yourself, it looks like you're being a stereotype. There's a difference between being a stereotype and then being a satire. Like Crime Time was a satire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it literally, like I said, I literally just did the thing. It was like, yo, WWE's Crime Time. And I'm like, that's on purpose. Because like you hear the WWE announce guy talking again. He's like, bro, and it was how they dressed. They were literally mimicking like the rappers of the day. You know what I mean? And even then it was fun. It was family friendly. You know what I mean? It weren't like the gangsters in ECW. You know what I mean? Right. It was straight up gangsters. That was like, they was, you know, bats, gangs, you know, that was their whole thing. But it's like, there's a fine line, you know, with these type of, I guess you consider your shtick or your gimmick. And I'm like, man, if that's who you are, then you should be allowed to embrace it in a way where it's authentic and not stereotype or stereotypical. And they're like, don't get me wrong, I'm familiar with Hit Row, you know what I mean? But I just really haven't had a chance to dive into like who are they and what are they doing. I see them all the time, and I'm like, okay, it was clearly we see this faction, but you know, what is their place in all of this, and you know, where do they fit into this next generation of NXT? Because the NXT is, it's got this. It's, you know what NXT looks like? NXT looks like to me, you know, in that what they call the Capitol Wrestling Center, which is the Performance Center, which I didn't know. I don't know why I didn't know that for a long time. I was like, so where's this?
Wait a minute, you didn't know that?
I wasn't paying attention. I was like, wait a minute. So they moved it out of Full Sail. Like, so where's this convention center that they're shooting this at? And they're like, oh no, that's the Performance Center. Gut it out. And I was like, oh shoot, it looks what NXT looks like. It looks like, in my mind, what they imagine Raw Underground is supposed to look like. It looks like an underground wrestling show. Yeah, you know what I mean? It looks like an underground fight club. You know, the way it's set up. So yeah, you know, it's just, you know, they're trying to develop people down there and get people.
I think they may be missing the fans the most.
Well, yeah, because it's such a rap. They don't need a lot of fans, but it's such a rabid style of wrestling. Yeah, and you need that up close and personal. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's hurting them the most, because their takeovers are not the same, as far as the delivery. But at the same time, though, it's like, well, is it not the same because of what they're doing in the ring? Was because the atmosphere isn't set, and that's not fair to those who are performing in the ring. But unfortunately, they're going to be judged based off that, because it's like, okay, well, you don't have that many fans. And to be honest with you, it seems like half the fans in the audience might be like staff or other wrestlers. You know what I mean? Because the reactions don't always seem genuine to me. Right. Like they kind of know it's coming, or they probably sat there for rehearsal and knew kind of, you know what I mean? Versus that live NXT crowd, they catch everything. That's the smart group. So as soon as something peaks or something pops, they're on it, and that experience kind of keeps you locked in at home. Like, wait, what did I miss? What did I miss? Yeah. And you know, so think about it. When you're watching there live, you got one reaction. When you're watching at home, depending on where you live, you got another reaction. Then there's a delay because the tweets are going out, and you get notifications to your phone before it may happen where you live at, and there's another reaction, and there's this build. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's something I think NXT is probably missing right now. But it's I would never take away what they're doing as far as they've kept a lot of their mainstays down there that, in my mind, should be on the main roster, like anybody think. But right now, it's not safe. You know what I mean? Especially with
you've been saying that for a whole month.
It's just not room, because you're watching people get cut left and right, and it's like, man, you get that pay raise, and they decide, oh shoot, we got to cut your paycheck. Yeah. Nobody wants to take a step backwards. So some people say, look, I'd rather stay where I'm at. Don't move me forward if you're not ready for it. Which is, you know, that's your business. That's how you have to, like, okay, financially, what makes sense for me to move up? Because now, look at a guy like Strowman. Strowman's a victim of his own worth, because he said, look, I knew my worth. I negotiated a big contract, and then they felt the need, like, well, we got to cut it right now because this is not what we need. Whatever they're doing behind the scenes as far as their business is concerned, which is a guy that, if he doesn't get signed before then, is someone I expect back immediately once the ball gets rolling again, which should probably be soon with, the fans back at Raws and SmackDowns. And now I don't know the format for live events after, everything is going down, but I like a lot of the young talent in NXT, and they're definitely like a group outside of vignettes, I got to really pay attention to. I'm not really sure I'm sold on them yet, because like, well, where does it go? Because you can see a group like them compared to like a Sanity. And then, and the crazy part, this is what pissed me off. Somebody said it on Twitter, and it made sense. It was like, yo, everything we saw from Retribution, we should have saw from Sanity. And it would have made sense because, one, they were nuts and fans were familiar with who the heck they were. versus you did the same thing, but you took a bunch of nobodies. The only difference was you did it during the pandemic era.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to make it make sense. Let that have been Sanity that came up and did the stuff they did. It would make sense because when who got moved up immediately, or who was it a faction?
Which one, when Eric Young?
There was a point in NXT where I don't know what generation of guys started moving up. I think it was like around the time when Andrade and all that got moved up. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now that all these people are out of the mix now, I want to see more from Sanity and all this other. I don't know.
Oh, I thought that was the Apollo's group when they came up right after WrestleMania.
Maybe
it might Apollo Ricochet. I think he came up. But I feel like it was that group though. I know
I think that it was. And I kept saying
Ember Moon was in that one as well.
And I was like, okay, cool. Now that they're gone, because you saw Sanity sparingly, but like you didn't see them doing Sanity things. And I was like, I need to see more from them. Like I need to see more intense Eric Young promos. I need to see more Nikki Cross going crazy. I need to see more powerhouse from Killian Dane and what was the other guy's name? He recently just got cut. Alexander Wolf, I think it was.
Okay.
Guy from NXT UK. So
it might have been him.
I believe it was him, because he had a rare figure that was hot. And like us amongst us figure collectors, it was an exclusive that everybody was rushing to get. And a shout out to the Baltimore Elite Squad. They were on it.
It was Alex Wolf, Sawyer Fulton, and Eric Young.
Yep. And so that was something, but the same thing that you saw from them, just kind of reckless and just we're going to get what we want. And it was weird the way Retribution did it because it didn't make sense. It only started to make sense when Ali was a part of it. But by the time he got involved, it was already too far gone. And they had these crazy names like Mason Jindu and and I'm like, man, this doesn't make any sense. Versus Sanity was stumped them doing that, even with the extras, because Retribution started with a bunch of extras. Mm-hmm. Even if you had the four main group people or the five, how many people that was in Sanity, and then you had similar looking extras that look like that. You know what I mean? That to me would have been a display power, and that's an example of an NXT faction that made sense. Then moved to the main roster, and it dissolved. Now it probably wouldn't have worked on the main roster, but if my problem is, don't say it's not going to work on the main roster, but then take the similar idea and put new wrestlers in it that nobody really knew who they were anyway. I'm like, wait a minute, how you going to say it's not going to work on the main roster, but then take the same concept, rename it something else, paint it with a different gimmick, and then put all new faces in it, and that's supposed to help build them? That makes no sense to me. So that's where I'm nervous about this group. Because I'm looking at okay, where do you go with them long term? Wrestling is a long term situation, and I know Pritchard talks about it a lot. Like, okay, where do you go from here? And you may like a group, or you may like a guy or girl, but it's like if there's no real long term, there's a lot of people that came out of NXT that just didn't have any longevity to them. And I'm not talking about the ones that were good enough to be there; they just didn't get that push or that rub. I'm talking about, I called out a lot of stuff early on. I said, this is not going to work on the main roster.
The Vaudevillains?
The Vaudeville, I forgot about them. I forgot all about the Vaudeville.
I remember, I ain't like them. I remember seriously, you was like,
I said, they're not going to work on the main roster. Emma, I said, Emma's not going to work on the main roster. I said, because her entrance is too long. Like, she's going, boop, 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 boop. And like that short walk from NXT to that ring was short. You can do that. But then when she came to the main roster, she was just coming down and she would do like just a little bit. I'm like, wait, that's a part of your gimmick though. Like fans were waiting for the bubbles and the dance. But now that's no longer part of your situation. So why are people here to see you now?
Yeah.
Right. But that was an NXT creation that made sense in the NXT arena. Fandango, same thing. You know what I mean? It captured its moment, but Johnny Curtis's ring work didn't deliver. But the original Johnny Curtis character, I was like, that's not going to work. The PlayStation group, what are those guys?
Ascension, yo.
Ascension. Remember, their stuff looked like a PlayStation commercial. Like I was like, bro, this looks like a PlayStation commercial. They're I was like, bro, look, that's what they look like.
PlayStation.
I was like, bro, it looks like it looks like a PlayStation commercial. Like, back when PS2 came out, they used to have all those type of commercials that look like that. That's what it reminded me of, PlayStation. And I was like, they're not going to work with them. I said, because unless they're dominant, if you're not bringing those guys in to be immediate tag team champions and say, no, we're going to build a tag division around these monsters. It's not, and it didn't. Bram, when he was in TNA, Charlotte's ex-husband, when he was originally supposed to be in a group, it made sense, but then he got cut, and then he went to TNA, and then, domestic stuff, got in his way. I'm not sure his career ever really is ever recovered. But the new version of what the Ascension was after that, I was like, this isn't going to work in the main roster. That's what I'm always leery of. And that EC3 didn't even work in NXT. Like, he had the nerve to think he belonged. When he had his shot with Dean Ambrose and he blew it, I was like, yep, Vince gave up on this dude the first time he stepped in the ring. Because as much as Vince is an entertainment guy, he does not play around with in-ring work at all.
Talk about it.
Like, it's crazy because Keith Lee was another guy. Like, we don't know his situation right now. Let me disclaim, I don't know what's going on with that, but I remember I watched his once again, his either 24 or Untold, whatever was a network, and you see Vince going after the match, he was really going in, and he was like, yeah, Vince had to pull me up, and it wasn't what he wanted. And you see Vince McMahon like going back, and he wasn't fussing at it, but he was breaking down why it didn't work. He's straightforward, like, look, it didn't work. This is what I need you to do. This is why what you didn't make any sense. And I'm like, yeah, for an entertainment guy, if you're not a superstar bringing that kind of money, he cares about what you deliver on TV.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm always nervous of when I see talent in NXT make their way to the main roster. Even MSK, I'm like, I like those guys, but they got a whole lot of
growing.
No, they got a whole lot of Wesley Bake and Buddy Murphy in them. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
They look cool as NXT champions right now, but I'm like, once again, is this a group you're going to call up because they're two cruiserweights? You know what I mean? You're going to go against the Viking Raiders. You know what I mean? You're going to go up against, Dawkins and Ford. You're going to go up against Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode. You know what I mean? You're going to go up against AJ and Omos. You're going to go up against, whoever else is supposed to be a tag team right now. Those are things I'm worried about because, like I said, these are, now granted, they're young, but I'm like, well, how long do you expect them to stay in NXT? How long is their development? Because as soon as they got there, they became mainstays, or are they victims of 205 Live? So it's stuff like that. But I don't mean to go in on hit road, but once again, it's for the culture.
You're just saying right now the jury's out for them. You're trying to see where they go.
I'm nervous for them. I am.
Okay.
It's like me. One thing about Swerve Scott, we saw Shane Strickland years ago in MCW. You're like, oh yeah, this is the guy. And he came out and he was extremely skinny, and I was like, he's the guy. He didn't have the appearance or the look. He's like, oh no, he's gonna be good. Blah blah blah. And watched him develop. He grew on me. He's still relatively smaller guy, physically. Won't deny what I love his character. I love his personality. I love his mannerisms and stuff like that. But his size makes me nervous for him. He has if he was bigger to me, he would have a lot of Kofi Kingston potential. Not to say that he would be the next Kofi Kingston, but I'm like, I see a lot of differences, of course, but I see a lot of similarities. I'm like, but he's such a smaller guy. Like, he got stuck in 205 Live. How long is he supposed to stay at NXT?
Right.
So, I digress. I'm leery about it, but yeah.
Now, something happened this past Wednesday. Samoa Joe made his return.
Thank God. He was not going anywhere else.
I was waiting. I dropped it in the chat, and I think you might have been busy at this time because I was waiting for your reaction.
It was everywhere. Trust me. It was. I don't know if I was. I don't know where I was. I was busy. I know I was busy, but I was doing. I remember I wanted to say something so bad because group text, Twitter blew up.
Yeah. That's one of the moments I was because very seldom do I get a chance to I watch NXT on Tuesdays like when it's happening, and I don't know what I was doing. But I was like, I'm sit here and watch this, and then I know I was in the Pro Wrestling Anonymous group clubhouse or the Wrestling Classic clubhouse, and I was like, all right, NXT on. I don't want the background noise. Let me jump out real quick. And sure enough, Joe comes out there, and I was like, oh boy, because we had seen the rumors and all this.
Pick up, of course.
Yeah, and it made sense. If I remember you were saying it was probably a thing where he was making too much money, that making wrestler money but not being a wrestler. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. Yeah.
So I'm glad he came back. I like him in this role. He's going to be the muscle essentially.
Yeah. It makes sense.
I mean, who messing with him? You got to see one of my nephews because he reminds me of him so much.
Wow. Yeah, reminds of Shimojo. That's
he's always because he's always been like stocky and solid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if he ever look, he could be like a Samoa Joe. You know, when Joe got to WWE, it's like, oh, he look like him, you know. But even when I think it was Adam Cole he put down, because Adam Cole kind of got out of hand, and you know, he put him in the camel clutch.
He got him out of there.
And said, when he wakes up, you tell him. I was like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, he's gonna be, you know, still in order in NXT. Yeah. So I'm excited for him in this role.
I knew something was up when Regal made the announcement, like, this is getting out of hand. I have to do something. I have to do something about this. And I was like, uh-oh. It's
too early for him to say War Games.
War Games. Yeah, he looks forward to War Games every year. But
yeah, did you see the montage somebody put?
No, I did not see
that.
Yeah,
somebody put a montage like, yeah, you know, when you act stupid, Regal get ready. War Games.
That's like an NXT staple now.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's like Teddy Long's Undertaker, one-on-one with the Undertaker.
One-on-one with the Undertaker.
A tag team, man.
A tag team, man. I remember he used to come back on a reunion, and that's for two things he would always say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's who. What do you think about? I don't mean to divert because I know we got to.
No, go ahead.
What do you think about Karrion Kross now that he has returned?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say, you know, because usually you go back in injury, you get back on point, and you get like, we didn't see that with a Tommaso Ciampa. Tommaso Ciampa's in like making you star role now in NXT. Mm-hmm. But I think Tommaso's on his way back up, literally because this dude has transformed his body. He looks like a machine. I'm like, see, to me, it shows me he's thinking, because this is what the WWE responds to.
Yeah,
he can perform. His mannerisms, that stuff makes sense. But like, he's getting bigger. I'm like, okay, cool. He looks like a superstar. He looks legitimate for the gimmick that he's giving out. You can't be that guy and be skinny, because then you're Corey Graves. That's why I never liked Corey Graves. You know, because I was like, dude, he looks like he's trying to be so intense and so serious, but he's so little. It's tough to take you seriously. But like you're watching Ciampa like transform his body literally, and I was like, oh, he's gonna be a problem. You know what I mean? And we didn't see him get back on track right away. He seemed like he was getting up there, and then it's just like goes up and it goes down, it goes up and goes down. Karrion Kross comes back from injury. He gets right back in the space that he's been in. You know, after Finn Balor really carried the NXT brand. You know,
and the match.
Yeah, of course. Yes, you know what I mean. Karrion Kross is a guy that a lot of people feel like he has like main roster potential now. Of course, he needs some polishing. You know what I mean? Little things, psychology things, facial expression, and stuff like that. But he's got the size, he's got the gimmick, he's got his wife, his valet. You know what I mean? He's a very believable guy, and his work speaks for itself. What do you think of him now in this run as the new flag bearer for NXT in this version of NXT that we're seeing? I call this the Click era. This is the DX version of NXT, because these are Triple H, Shawn Michaels babies and Road Dogg's babies. Like, you're seeing their influence heavy, and they're not shy about it either. Like, they came out and introduced In Your House. Like, come on, man. Like, you imagine if they was in front of everybody at like Barclays or something like that, and they came out.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
With Todd Pettengill too?
Yeah, Todd Pettengill. Like, come on, that's easy.
I'm not a fan of Karrion Kross right now.
Okay.
Like you just said, to me, he's like Tommaso Ciampa. He hasn't gotten back to what he was after injury. We've seen Triple H bounce back. Remember, Tour Squad comes back.
Oh, that's not fair.
Big ovation. No, but I'm just saying, as a wrestler fan, I've been programmed to see guys like Triple H, Edge, John Cena show up after injury and deliver, right?
But they were established names, though, Brian. And you talking about a guy that he hadn't even had a run yet. He just got there and he got injured. He did all that, won the belt, and then was gone just that quickly.
Talking about what I'm used to.
But that's not fair, though. Yo.
Okay, it might not be fair.
All right, it's not fair. You really just said I don't like Karrion Kross because I'm used to. I'm like, yeah, those were established guys, though. Would it make? Let me ask you a question. With that being said, would it have made a difference if those guys were not established stars? If Triple H was Hunter Hearst Helmsley, that happened, and he did that, would it have the same impact on you? If it was The Rock in his early years, if it was Edge when he was still brutish Edge, would it have made that much of a difference to you?
But see, here's the thing: these guys weren't. If they would have been, let's just say, I'll give you a better one. Shawn Michaels, Intercontinental Champion.
You're not making this any better. You said
he's an Intercontinental Champion. Let's not act like Shawn Michaels just didn't get better, because he got even better and greater, right? Okay, so Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels, he gets suspended, right? But when So he's gone for 30 days. Razor Ramon wins the IC championship. He's the guy at the mid card. Shawn Michaels comes back and boom, insert right here, back like he never left. Right?
Okay.
That's what I mean. So when I look at NXT, I don't see that with Karrion Kross. Now I'm trying to be fair, and here's the reason why I don't see it. Him, Adam Cole, and it may have been Kyle O'Reilly, whoever it was. They come out there and own this dude on the mic to the point dude's sitting there stiff like,
yeah.
And that's what did it for me. I was like, all right, maybe I'm just not into this character.
Yeah,
right. You know, but before, because he was a man of less words, and it was just so many.
I was thinking the same thing. It was very mystique. It was a mystique to it.
And that mystique is gone.
Yeah,
you know. But and mind you, the mystique came and it was like, man, this really he was. Keith Lee was almost a victim of. It was like, all right, now he finally gets the title, but we want this guy. But I'm just go ahead and say it because Keith Lee was black and he was an indie darling. Nobody would say it, but we want this guy, right? But let that have been Andrade a few years ago, right? And Andrade wins the belt, and then Karrion Kross got this mystique. People would be like, oh, we don't want him. We want him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that's the kind of mystique he had. Now, so then he beats Keith Lee. That mystique is still there, but then when he got hurt, it's just and like I say, he comes back and he's saying all this stuff. To me, I guess he was talking too much that he kept erasing the mystique. And that's the thing. So the mystique is gone. I want to see, quite frankly, he could be a part of the issue. You know, and like I say, he's been main eventing, but I care more about Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly than I did his match with Finn Balor.
Okay.
Because to me, it was like Finn Balor was in there with somebody, where Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, I mean, their matches speak for themselves.
Sure. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's how I feel about that. Before we get out of here, AEW, man.
Okay, here we go. This is the hot topic right here.
Now, I really wish they could have chosen another day. Bro, Fridays nights, 4 hours of wrestling. Friday nights, I know they can't wait for the playoffs to be over.
Yeah, they gotta get their Wednesdays back.
If there was any sort of momentum they may have been gaining, it seemed like it's going away. I haven't checked ratings, but
that's what's been happening to them since day one. Like they'll get momentum for whatever reason, and it just seems like stuff happens where it dies down, and they got to find a way to get it back.
Yeah,
I've tuned out. Like I haven't even checked back in. Like I was not involved. And then they pulled me in and I got involved and then it died down. And then like I just haven't gotten back involved. Now I'll jump in a little bit. I see my guys and good brothers for a quick moment. But then again, I can't stomach the whole show. And it's just oof.
A few weeks ago, I'm about almost called the man Goldust. Dustin Rhodes.
He's Goldust. Come on now.
he beat some man.
Yeah, that exactly. That right there. Yeah. Exactly. That's the problem. That's the problem right there.
So he's somebody in the main event. And Twitter goes off like, why is he still winning main events at this age? And why is he in the main event at this age? And he basically replied from, according to the internet, he replied like, him being in the ring with me is a win for him. And everybody like, your old self, like, you ain't the same what you was 20 years ago, bro.
Like, bro, I appreciate you being in the best shape of your life at this point. But come on, man. Like, I don't know, man. I just don't understand AEW a little bit. It's like, I think because I have so much wrestling, I don't have to appreciate it. Does that make sense? Like, back in the day, whatever wrestling they gave you, no matter how bad it was. Like, we used to watch
Wrestling Society X.
I actually like Wrestling Society. A lot of people did. That joke got canceled like the first 2 minutes.
It's the reason it got canceled.
Look,
so, I ain't hate it, but it was one of those things because it was wrestling. You turned it on.
It was even worse. I was watching MCW Rage TV, and it was just a loop of clips of former MCW wrestling matches. Like it wasn't even full matches. They was giving like 2 and 3 minutes of matches. Like I even saw Jerry Lawler as champion at one point. I would watch that on a loop. I don't know what channel it was. Just a random like Maryland public channel. And on a Saturday afternoon, they would just play this It was MCW Maryland Rage TV, and they would just show you random clips of former MCW stuff. I got a kick out of that. First thing in the morning, I had to get up and clean up for my mother got in the house. You know, at ESPN Classic, used to play the golden age of professional wrestling. You know what I mean? Where like the Skull Crusher was the finisher, and like the crowd went nuts. Like that was the finish of the match, and it was such a controversial move. Like the match couldn't go on. Like the fans were buzzing for like 20 minutes, and one guy was inside the ring, like trying to get the match to get started, and the officials was holding the guy who it happened to outside the ring. Like they couldn't figure out what to do next, and they fake talking to the bull, like, should we throw the match out? And I watched that for 15 minutes, like, wait, nothing is just happening, but they're going nuts in there because they literally took 15 minutes to get the fans excited about something. The finish was the Skull Crusher. He literally took an elbow to the back of the guy's head like that, and he like bounced up, and like everybody went crazy. Like there was wrestling for me. You know what I mean? Nothing. Didn't remember who it was. I remember like like when I say I can close my eyes and see it to this day. And I was sitting there watching like Golden Age professional wrestling, and then I was trying to get up every Saturday morning at a certain time to watch it. Of course, it didn't. You know, programming changed with ESPN, or they just put stuff on loops all the time. ESPN Classic, but you know, I would purposely try to get up on Saturday mornings to see that. Like early, it was like 6, 7:30, 8 o'clock before like anything else came on live wire or whatever. It wasn't even.
I remember Wow. It was Wow came on.
Wow, when was the rest? Was it Saturday afternoons on
Saturday
Fox?
around 12. And I found it
that 12.
I was like recording just because it was wrestling. You know, but you're right. We have so much nowadays.
I don't have to appreciate it. Like I don't have to. Like
but you also don't gotta watch what you don't want to watch.
Yeah, you know? I have options. Like this, I don't love professional wrestling the way that I used to because we couldn't get enough of it back then. You know, it was Mondays was must see because if you missed Monday, there was no way you can catch up. There was no YouTube, there was no internet because even the internet it wasn't a whole lot of media on it. They weren't putting a whole lot of photos on it. It was still magazines. We definitely wasn't no video. That's still relatively new. It was no like you had to take what you can get. If there was no DVDs, like you couldn't run it back. You had to get a tape. You know, if you wanted to watch something, you had to rewind it back. You know, that's why you taped Raw. Like we had kids that just had a 6-hour, 10-hour empty tape on Raw, and they were set for Monday Night Raw. Another TV was set for Nitro, and tape traders come to school. I got Nitro, I got Raw. And that, you know.
And don't accidentally leave the tape in and accidentally record over the previous weeks.
Yeah, that's a drop, you know what I mean?
I had a whole collection. I mean, you've seen the DVD collection.
I saw the tape collection. It was we put it in the trailer.
Yeah. You know, and at one point that was lower because at one point I had like all the SmackDowns.
Do you have those tapes still, or you got rid of those?
I got rid of them.
I wanted them for history purposes, but I had nowhere to put them or nothing to do with them.
And I'm kicking myself because now with this this device I got with my HDMI. Yeah. If I just had a VCR, I could have been inserting them here and digitally.
It's this whole retro vibe going on. That's the thing. I know a lot of collectors are going back and collecting their favorite VHS tapes now from their childhood, like Ninja Turtles VHSs and you know Star Wars sets and stuff like that. Because that's our childhood is the new retro. You know, we used to crack on our parents when we was younger. The 70s was the retro day. Everybody went to school wearing afros and bell bottoms and 60s stuff. And now retro day, you see kids dressed in skinny jeans, windbreakers, backwards hats, and high top sneakers. And you're like, wait a minute, is that today's style or is that the 90s style?
Exactly.
Kids looking for starter jackets and champion stuff. And I'm like, we can wear this again?
That Hornets jacket.
Man, what else? A classic. Hornets and Bulls. Hornets, Bulls, Dallas Cowboys, and Georgetown. Like, come on, man. But yeah, like I said, I don't understand it. But like I said, and I don't have to.
This dreams me up though, right here. Hold on.
Somebody's got a bone to pick.
I got a bone to pick.
Got through the whole show without having a bone to pick.
Well, we're talking retro, but we're mainly talking about stuff out childhood, right?
Okay.
So I was listening to something to wrestle with, and and it was the episode I haven't finished yet. Undertaker 1998. And
that's a good year. I gotta listen to that one. I didn't even know that was up there.
Yeah, I just
I'm behind like 6 months on podcasts, so let's just make that.
Hey,
out there.
At this point, I'm going through. Y'all want to watch this? I want to watch that.
That's what I do. Yeah.
So they're talking
about Jeff Jarrett's podcast. I just want to put that out there real quick.
Yeah, but like they're doing starting TNA. I haven't got past the first one, and I think it's like 3 or 4 or 5 parts to that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Conrad's money man. God dang. But I don't mean to keep up you, but god dang it. He's just reeling everybody in. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah, but I'm listening to him talk about Undertaker versus Kane, WrestleMania 14.
Mm-hmm.
He said, did the match deliver? And then Conrad goes with his spiel about how it felt like the story was great, but the match was like,
man, they out all of this.
And then Bruce goes like, he felt that in hindsight they gave people too much because they knew they was going to be doing it again. Probably. And I'm sitting there like, don't ruin my childhood.
Yeah.
I've watched that match. That's a part of the rotation and during
absolutely
WrestleMania season.
That's all WrestleMania 14 is to me. To be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's really Taker, Kane, and of course Austin and Shawn Michaels. The changing of the guard. So
exactly, but to me, I didn't see. Oh yeah, that was on there. I didn't hate. I mean, I love the match. Like I said, I've watched it plenty of times, and I'm like, and my point is, as wrestler fans, a lot of times we go back. And I've been on this spill before. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, this person wasn't good in the ring, or this, that, and the other. Yada, yada. It was about the story. Even Austin and Undertaker at SummerSlam '98. People complain about that match.
What?
Austin complains about the match because he said he got knocked out. So I think he was just going on instinct, right? Mm-hmm. And people's like, maybe not the great. I'm like, these stories were so great that by the time they got into the ring, all we wanted to do was see these people clash. We didn't care how many suplexes and body slams. We just wanted to see them go at it, and we wanted to see the finish.
But wasn't it not the same format though as we're watching now, where you use your TV to build to the pay-per-view?
Mm-hmm.
And you have situations, and that's crazy. The storytelling is so different, but it's like, I don't even know.
That's why I don't get into these 5 stars. Like Meltzer do these star ratings. Yeah. I don't get into that because to me, it's never about. I mean, first of all, you ain't gonna tell me whether I should enjoy or not enjoy a match, right? But you look at Brock Lesnar and Goldberg the first time. Everybody, because of the whole story, and you got Jim Ross, all the video package. It's going to take the 87th Airborne or 82nd Airborne to be getting between these two, and then they go out there and headlock, right? And headlock, and you like, so that was probably like the first time I really looked at a match. It's like that sucked. And now, mind you, this is WrestleMania 20 in 2004, and it took me that long to finally say something like that about a match, right? Mm-hmm. But before that, it was just like, all right. Now, granted, the second time they made up for it, but I will never understand this whole notion of matches and everything's got to be these 5-star, so I don't go back in my childhood and say, I'll tell you another match, and this would surprise people. Sting and Hogan.
Yeah.
Everybody, people goes
the build up was way
on but I didn't care because when they got to the match, it was finally Sting, Hogan. Going at it. Now that finish was like, even then, what just happened? But guess what? At the end, you can't take away that moment and those camera shots of Sting on the giant shoulder holding the title. So that's my bone to pick. Stop going back and ruining our childhood wrestling memories.
Leave it there. Like leave it alone. I wonder if people who are our age watching wrestling when we were young, looked at the product like we look at it now. I don't know any because I'm sure they're like we talking about. We was 9, 10, 11, 12, how years old, in the early years, and we're in our 30s now. You know what I mean? So imagine like somebody in their 60s now, like, oh yeah, I remember that. I was your age when y'all was white, and I did. I wanted to look at it the same way, but I'm with you, buddy. Like I don't need no explanation. You don't gotta. It meant what it meant to me because you didn't care. Like, and I wonder if that's how the kids look at the product today, where we break these things down, and you know, as wrestling fans, as a collective group, you know, we're very nitpicky. But I think the biggest thing, in all fairness to wrestling fans, I will say this: I think it's just because wrestling, at some point in our lives, have had such an impactful, positive space in our heads that we want that so bad because we don't want to give up that space. We don't want to give up that positive experience that we once had. So it's like you kind of clamor for more and more and more. So sometimes you just happen to complain when you don't get what you want, which is understandable. But you know, at the end of the day, I can understand that. So yeah, let's leave our childhoods alone.
Right. Exactly. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nah, man, this is an excellent show. A great recap. Got a lot on the plate to do. Plenty more to come.
Sheesh. Yeah, so y'all make sure y'all tune in, subscribe if you haven't done so by now. This Thursday or Wednesday, one of these days, we will be dropping the documentaries review show. I'm pretty sure the Real Dwayne Allen will have a cool name for it.
Did we name it something already?
We probably did, and I probably just can't think about it right now. But yeah, make sure y'all tune into that. You can also catch me on Twitch playing some old school WWE games. I even got I found Fight Night and Madden 04. This is the greatest Madden, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
You ever played Knockout Kings?
Oh yeah, I had the first one.
Okay.
That was the first time my dad went and saw a game in the paper, particularly that he wanted, and said, "Hey, let's go get this game."
Gotcha.
I actually just bought it again off of eBay.
Oh, okay.
That and Ready to Rumble for $10.
Ready to Rumble was another one.
Yeah,
that was a PlayStation staple. But Knockout Kings would eventually become Fight Night, right? They changed
EA Sports. Yeah. So,
but yeah, so I got Ready to Rumble was a good one. Butcher Brown, that was my guy. Afro Thunder. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually can't wait to play that with the kids because I think they'll like it.
Yeah, it's simple. You know, it's simple now compared to what they used to. So
heck yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about that. But yeah, I've been playing these games. I actually want to get, I'm trying to find Here Comes the Pain at a decent price. That's like No Mercy. You ain't gonna find
that's
those
like
games.
A wrestling game grill. So,
yeah. I was
in
in that store and they had No Mercy because I found a retro store in Canton. Shout out to Canton Games. I got the game from there. I got Madden, Fight Night, and In Your House from there. And he was like, I said, y'all got any 64s? He was like, no. I said, yeah, I'm looking for that and No Mercy. He opens up the drawer. He said, I got No Mercy. I was like, how much? He's like, $37.99. I said, okay. And I was like, of course you go on eBay, you start comparing, like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's about to go in rate. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, that's the thing. It's been fun, like we said, this retro kick. I think it makes you realize, like, God dang it, why did I get rid of some of this stuff?
Yeah, like you get rid of it to make space or to get something new, and then all of a sudden you're in, and you almost paying double for it to get it back, or probably you're paying more than what's really worth, but because it's a value now, so.
Exactly, and it means something to you, But and that's the thing too. For me, it was my parents wasn't going to buy me video games just because, and I didn't have a job, or if I had
birthdays.
Right, and if I did the job, I had a job, I would say, well, why spend $40 or $50 on a game when I could trade in this game I'm not playing no more?
Yep.
And get this, and EB Games used to do a thing. If you trade in 3 games, you get one free. So I actually traded in Your House and 2 other games. That's how I got WWF Attitude.
Yeah, the evolution of were you a Funko Land guy before it became EB Games?
Yeah, but see, Funko Land. So of course, as a child, I feel like it was all the way across town.
Sure,
but I'm not sure where it was. Now I think about it.
It was one in Towson, in Govins.
That's where it was
by Channel 2. That shopping center right behind Channel 2.
Yeah. Okay. So for some reason, it felt like it was in Patapsco. Like I said, yeah, that's right. So you know me, you know where I grew up. So near Bella Edison area, I remember when they first came out with the paper, and
I used
that
to
was
get
the
them like it was the freaking newspaper weeklies, just going in and 5, 6 of them bad boys.
Okay,
not realizing that everything on it wasn't really in stock.
Bingo, right? The first time they came out with the paper, they said games for 99 cents or whatever.
Yeah,
so I had a PlayStation 1 at the time. And now I think about it, that's when I traded in majority of my Super Nintendo games. So I could get some of the games from Funko Land. And the games I got was the game I ended up buying was Triple Play Baseball, which was like $19.99. But I traded, and now I'm thinking like, man, that was stupid. But shout out to this lady. I'll never forget. When I first started trading in some of those Nintendo games at EB Games. She stopped me from trading in King Griffey Jr.'s Win and Run because she said, "Are you sure you want to trade this? Because you only go get like $6, but this game's still up there and sells, and I still have it to this day." And that was like one of those games like I got like I wanted that game so bad, and we bought it when I was on vacation, but I didn't take the system with me, and ended up having the game. And you sitting there like, we're going home tomorrow. You can't wait to get back. And we was in South Carolina. Couldn't wait to get back to Baltimore so I could play. So, but yeah, this whole retro kick, one of these days I'll find the 64, and then I'll be able to experience the holy grail of all the games that you talk about that missed out on my childhood.
You definitely did. Like I said, the anticipation is rising. Like I'm this close. I'm like, look, Brian, it's gonna hand it to you. Like, there it is. This time
we'll even have to switch. We have to switch us playing.
We can definitely do that. That'll be fun. Trust me.
But SmackDown 2 wasn't bad. It wasn't, yo.
You still hold on to this?
I am.
I played it. I was like, no, this ain't it. This isn't it. Like, I didn't even get through it. I was like, no, can't even do it.
And then, well, you wait till I get my game back. Wait. I'm gonna be playing that one.
Yeah, it's in my room, so I just gotta find it. Trust me.
I'm gonna play that one because that was a classic. But it was like I was playing Attitude, and I was like, man, you could really like customize the arena. You could put like Royal Rumble skirts with WrestleMania banners. I was like, man, this was so much fun, you know. Yeah. And the whole thing was crazy because I was reading an article like. I don't even remember WCW Mayhem.
Yeah,
they came
terrible.
up.
Yeah.
Well, and review wise, they said it wasn't that bad. It's just that WCW got in their own way. They left THQ because WWE was over there or WWF was there.
They did WWF WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah,
which was a game changer.
Yeah, and then here comes No Mercy, blows that out the water.
Yeah, No Mercy was ridiculous.
Yeah, and they gonna take revenge, which you could have. Well, perception over here on the PlayStation side, you didn't know which was better between Revenge or No Mercy. You just heard like those were like the two best games.
Yeah, that was a boy. Like it was Warzone, Attitude, and now you had WCW was NWO World Tour, which was before Revenge. That was the first introduction to THQ, and it was like. Extremely easy to play. Gameplay was ridiculous. It was fun. First time.
And this was our answer.
Yeah, that was.
And then they came out with fun. Nitro, and it was like, no, that wasn't that bad though.
The commercials was fire because when you saw the commercial for that, you were like, oh, I got to get that. Like Sting coming from the ceiling and stuff like that, and you were like, like because if you watch WCW, you saw that commercial at least 5-6 times a night. WWF.
Let me tell you what it was though.
Yeah,
Acclaim. With Attitude and Warzone both being on PlayStation and Nintendo 64, they didn't maximize the Nintendo. Obviously the 64 was more powerful than the PlayStation. They didn't maximize the 64. So here comes THQ. They maximize what they could do with the PlayStation. Hence, we got WCW versus the World. We got SmackDown and SmackDown 2. So, like I said, for us, that was as good as it got. But then 64, a more powerful system, they did what they were supposed to do. Ooh. They maximized the heck out of it.
Bro, WrestleMania 2000 was a big deal, and then when WCW was NWO Revenge came out, we was like, oh, this blows this out the water, because that was like the entrances and stuff like that. Like, because you used to get like I don't know what it was called at the time. I know it was like, it wasn't Expert Gamer, but it was like Game Informer. They changed the names 1,000 times.
Game Informer, Game Pro, so many.
Nintendo Power was a big one.
Yep.
Just the screenshots, it was a huge deal. You were like, oh boy, I gotta get. And then when you saw like, God, you see a commercial, you were just like, oh yeah, it was unreal. And like I said, and then you thought it was no better than that, but then No Mercy comes out and shuts all of that down, and nothing has been the same since. So
yeah. Well, and I can finish with this. AEW games, they just showed the gameplay. I didn't really do like a deep dive. I watched the commercials, like, okay, This looks good, but every year SmackDown looks good. 2K Sports will show us something that looks good. I want to know, you got all the gamers over there, and they top execs now. WWE, they have gamers, but I don't think the gamers are in the business meetings. I don't think. Maybe in the next go round they'll have the Xavier Woods and all his company and the up down crew.
Which I don't understand why they wouldn't, but okay.
Right, you take advantage of that. This represents your company,
right?
But over there you have the Kenny and the Bucks and all them. They're in these meetings, so I'm expected. To me, I don't want to be super drastic and say this is AEW's last chance to really cut their teeth into something.
Right.
But what I would say is, from a person who's a WWE lifer, this may be their last chance for me to take them as serious, because this is wrestling video games are just as much a part of my wrestling fandom as wrestling belts, as wrestling Funko Pops, etc. So I'm expecting them to do something really big with this game. And it's like, I don't want to see y'all drop the ball, because there's no excuses. It would be one thing, I don't want to hear no pandemic excuses, because you guys are gamers and you play the game and you promise something that's going to be as fun like No Mercy. So I want to see like all the stops.
Got you. Makes sense, bro.
So we'll see. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I know we just went on a rant about games, but it's our show, so we do.
We excuse every time.
Yep. So y'all make sure y'all share some of your favorite gaming memories in this as well. Make sure you tune in. Like I said, we talking about Dark Side of the Ring, as well as WWE A&Es. We're going to have a deep dive discussion on some of our biggest takeaways, what we like, what we didn't like, what we wanted to see. And make sure you tune in next week. We'll be back with Wrestling Realm now, and make sure everything's right on your screen. But if you're listening, hit the subscribe button or follow if you're on Spotify. Make sure we're on Twitch. Follow us at Wrestling Realm, and on Twitter and Instagram. Me at Brian H. Waters. I'm in Instagram trouble right now. Thanks to I'm pretty sure it's thanks to ESPN, because I told them about themselves. But you can follow Dwayne Allen at Dwayne Allen 24, and TRDA Brand is right there on the screen. Until the next time, folks, we are out.
Mr. Brian Waters.